but I had briefly looked at that picture and didn't think anything of it, and then my uncle called me from Texas, and he's like, did you see that picture? I'm like, oh. I didn't read the names.
Technology is great when it works, right?
Yeah. Maybe that's why Dan didn't hear us.
No, he's on Zoom, this is YouTube.
Oh, okay, that's YouTube good enough.
Yeah.
Okay,
It should be good.
we have two different systems going, right?
Yeah, one is the public and one is us. All right, we should be good.
Reset.
I think so.
Okay. First on the agenda are the winter NICEAG conference resolutions. Anybody that was there for any of these that would like to share anything or?
I can tell you that the second one is a standing resolution for the surety and resources.
All three of them.
And we would all like number 3, resolution calling for the state of New York to allow the county rule authority regarding employment residency reporting
All
limits.
three of them.
So 1 through 3, I think we would all like them.
And that just handles employment, right? Was anybody at that committee? That's just employment, not voluntary boards or anything.
And so that's mine, and I have a resolution, a motion.
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Supervisor McCormick. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is Jennifer.
Morning.
Morning.
So David Nelson has left Dan Nelson Wilkinson and Pujic. And so he had a contract for resource recovery for the Department of Social Services. They purposes, people got overpaid their services and whatnot. So as an FYI today, I'm letting you know that information. For now, I've been taking over and doing those for the department so that it gets taken care of. I've met with them. I've also met with Brian Degnan. He's one of my assistant county attorneys. I would like to take that funding that Mr. Nelson had, give the funding and the work to Mr. Degnan. I anticipate there will be some sort of salary increase. Dave's contract was for not to exceed $5,000. It's my understanding it's budgeted for $3,805. I believe he's submitted a voucher for this year of about $424. And so somewhere around $3,000 is what I will be looking for a salary increase, which I anticipate bringing next month to the committee. I just wanted to give you the FYI as to what's been, yeah.
Is that, did you talk to Rachel about that? The reason why I say that is because they might get reimbursement on that chargeback.
I have talked to Rachel about using Mr. Degnan, and we discussed that, but she did not indicate whether or not there was a reimbursement or not.
Did you mention increasing the salary as opposed to?
Yes, I did.
I'll talk to her.
Oh, and you know, I'm happy to talk to her more, but again, today is an FYI and, you know,
I saw that.
the best way, whatever the best way to handle it is, we'll be chatting more. I have a litigation update, which will need to be in the attorney client session, and I can wait to the end today.
Okay.
If that's easier for everybody.
So we just got, yeah, that might be, because I'm not sure if HR will have anything for executive at all today either. Okay. So we can wait to the end.
And then, I just, as an FYI, wanted to throw out that perhaps our rules of procedure should have rules for special meetings. The Roberts rules just say, hey, each board should have their own rules for special meetings. As we recently discovered, we don't have any in our procedural rules. So just throwing it out there that perhaps the appropriate committee may want to consider that.
What committee does that fall under?
Finance.
Finance. Finance.
You can, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, we'll do it anyway, I think it's a good idea too, because, we talked about it, and it would certainly make our life much easier if we had those, yeah.
So the further discussion, we'll not, we'll move this to finance. And a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Supervisor McCormick to move this discussion to finance. Updating our rules and procedures. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we'll have you back.
I'm gonna, see, it's the way it's trying to do it.
Okay. So she's done, she can walk up. She's got to unlock. Yeah.
Yeah, my first thing is I just wanted to make the committee aware that I went to Arcade and hopefully help them out some.
Not.
Took a few days, but we did good. I think Michelle and Cheryl were doing a great job over there. We did bring some records back. We were able to dispose of quite a few records along with storing, bringing the revenue count to 273 now with Arcade and Cornell. It's only permanent records. You know, they have little to no activity. So, but it worked out very well. Hopefully we help them out moving into the future. The next thing is just my annual report. Hopefully it's attached to your committee minutes. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary. I don't know if there's any questions, but I don't think so.
I read it there. I wrote my first was in the box.
And the last thing is we have a new scanner that we put into the 2022 budget. Waiting on it, excited about getting it when it comes, so, but we worked with Janice to get it into the budget this year, we needed it badly. We have a scanner now that we fight with it. No one wants to be there when we're swearing at it, trust me. It breaks down quite a bit when you have to restart it and talk nice to it and everything, so. But we're just waiting on that to be delivered. We worked with the IT to get exactly what we wanted and things like that, so.
And I think they've been very helpful in getting things ordered for departments.
Yeah, yeah, very good. But that's about it. Anyone wants to stop down and check this out? Or has any questions regarding their town records? Feel free to give me a call. I know I do have, is it Orangeville? That I have, is it Orangeville? No. It is Orangeville. Someone had told me from one for records to, they had some questions, so. But we're playing phone tag, but other than that, if anyone needs anything, give us a call.
Gail, how do you bill, for records storage? Do you bill like, because
I do, and I was doing it quarterly, but now because of Munis, we're just doing it every 6 months.
okay,
You know, so like in 6 months or in June, the end of June, 1st of July, you'll get a bill for 38 cubic feet at 25 cents.
yeah, it's so cheap, it's like, it's not even worth the check, so.
Yeah, other than that initial startup, and that gets you the box and my data entry and where, you know, the work that we put into the boxes to get them there and stuff like that. Outside of that, you know, it's just a no-brainer to get them out of your way and things. Especially once you don't, you know, like maps and stuff like that, because we have gorgeous map drawers. You know.
Yeah, and Arcade had a nice vault, but the humidity in there, so it's good to get it into a climate control.
Yeah, and hopefully way she painted that room where it keeps that moisture out.
The walls not painted, the floors and the ceilings, I don't think are painted, but
Yeah,
it's a lot nicer room now than.
yeah, and the walls were probably the worst, you know, so if he did some kind of
It's a lot nicer.
remediation there, yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
Thank you,
Have a
Deb.
nice day.
May I sit next to you?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I'd like to start off by introducing Gabrielle Colo. Gabby is our new Deputy Director of Human Resources. She replaces John Ford. And she's in her third week. And we appreciate her and glad to have her on board. So
Is,
please join me in welcoming her.
is John completely done, or is he still?
John is on a, if needed
basically?
basis. He hasn't been needed so far. But I undoubtedly will have to call him and pick his brain on a few things when the time comes. But yeah, he's no longer on the active payroll.
Would you like, you can go around and introduce?
That'd be great.
Start with you, Deb. Would you like to introduce yourself? Well, I'm just, she's here, she's a new employee, so I just thought we're all sitting here.
All right.
Great, how are you?
Good. Morning, Phil.
Ellen Marie.
Joe Brzezowski, Castile.
Jerry Davis got it.
Mike Roach, Eagle.
Morning, Vanessa McCormick.
Jim Breckman, Tom Perry.
Ryan Becker, Tom Shelton.
I'm Janice, Coconut Budget Officer.
Oh, and I know Gabby.
And I'm. And then you have. Well, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here and I look forward to working with all of you. Please contact me.
Gabby comes to us from Genesee Valley BOCES, where she had better than 10 years of HR experience. She holds a master's degree in human resources management from the University of Stony Brook. Okay. So turning your attention to the bottom of page 2, this is a little bit of housekeeping cleanup, but we would like to abolish the salary schedule and employee handbook for Schedule X. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Schedule X, well, it was created several years ago when we started creating the family medicine clinics. And Schedule X was limited solely to the non-provider employees who worked in the family medicine clinics in the remote towns. It was created for two reasons. One, to differentiate that work group, and secondarily, because the cost benefit structure of those businesses were very different than the cost structures in the hospital. And to be competitive, we needed to have a lower priced package, if you will, for that work group. At the time of creation, the union asked to recognize those people. And we, as part of this last negotiations, we did enter into a voluntary recognition of those employees, and they have been accreted into the bargaining unit, but we've maintained the cost differential with them. So we continue to have that price advantage for the employees in the clinics, specifically around benefits and time off. Their job in the clinics is Monday through Friday, no weekends, no holidays. And, obviously it's a different work than in the hospital. So therefore, there are no employees left. There will be no future employees in Schedule X or covered under the handbook. So we'd like to abolish it.
So Dan, when we look at the new CSEA agreement, is there an adopted schedule X in the,
There is a section in the new collective bargaining agreement, and I have it with me here, that it specifically carves out those employees and their benefits.
okay, so the identifier is another schedule in the back so that we know who they are?
No.
Or they're integrated into schedule?
The wages are integrated into the WCCH schedule. And their benefits, time off, sick time, healthcare contribution, et cetera, are all in a second tier, if you will, detailed specifically in a portion of the contract that deals with them and them alone.
So
And-
those of us that have not seen this new agreement, when we crack it open for the first time and look, it's an easy identifier.
Yeah, it's a specific article.
Okay,
And, yeah,
okay, thank you.
okay.
Any questions for Dan on this?
Okay.
A motion by Supervisor Grant. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Also, as a byproduct of the negotiations with the CSEA, I'd like to propose an amendment to Schedules S, D, and C handbooks to reflect changes in longevity and bereavement. With the collective bargaining agreement, we made slight adjustments to longevity payments. And we also added one additional category of relation added to the bereavement with the bargaining in it. And I'd like to propose that our S, D, and C handbooks reflect those changes so we have a uniform procedure across the board.
Is that effective in the Yeah.
Well, it will be effective. It will not be retroactive, no.
That's what I'm asking.
No.
So as soon as, so.
Well, the bereavement won't be, let's put it that way. If there's someone who,
Longevity, there's people who have longevity that are in SDN.
yeah, if there's a longevity trigger within the last 4 months, 3 months, I guess we'll look at that, yes.
There will be a retro procedure.
Yeah, I don't even know if, quite honestly, there is anybody who potentially falls into that, but we'll look at that, yeah,
But all the retro amounts are changing.
they are.
So I would guess everybody who's got longevity would have that.
Potentially, yes. That's if the board agrees to approve the change.
Do we have any questions?
Was it part of the contract negotiation, Dan? I didn't catch that part.
Yeah, there was a proposal to increase the longevity payment amounts that the union proposed, and that was part of the collective bargaining agreement. It was part of the highlights sheet that was distributed. It was a relatively modest increase. And the bereavement was the addition of step parents.
So did we already approve the financial piece of it? When
For
we
the
approved the
union.
contract?
Well, for the union, yeah.
Okay.
Now what I'm trying to do is create a
Okay.
even playing field for the small number
Yep.
of non-represented employees.
Okay.
So they're all the same.
Correct.
Makes sense.
Consistent.
Do you guys have any other questions on that? A motion by Supervisor Granger. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Okay, thank you. Number 3 is to propose the chairman sign a contract in the excess of $5,000 or more to Indeed. This is for online advertising through December 31st, 2022. We continue to have a significant number of vacancies that we are attempting to fill. Matter of fact, Supervisor Roach and I had a conversation just before the meeting started. I provided to him a detailed list of all open positions across both the hospital and the county that we're currently recruiting for. It's well over 100 positions. And it's we need these vehicles to attract candidates.
Four is the same, but with just four sometimes.
Yeah, as a commentary, I will share with you that we're not being very successful in our recruitment activities, but I don't think we have any other choice than to be out there trying.
Hopefully that somebody will.
The rules of the game have changed, and the advantages are clearly on the part of the employee now. And we're seeing all kinds of competitive forces in the marketplace driving wages up. And when we find somebody and we're able to offer them a position, it creates internal inequities within the existing workforce. It's very challenging right now.
Any questions on this? A motion?
I'll move 3 and 4.
Supervisor McCormick for 3 and 4. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And number 4 is essentially the same thing, but print. Thank you. Number 5 is I'd like to create and fill a position of Human Resource Assistant 3. Currently, we have Human Resource Assistant 1 and Human Resources Assistant 2. This would be a position that would be a promotional opportunity for individuals who are currently working in the HR department or have skills necessary. The differences between the 2 and the 3 are education and experience, as well as participation at the main table in collective bargaining. And I'm trying to create a retention tool here so I don't lose yet another person in the department.
Is position 6 the starting position? I see the difference in salary. So where it says human resources.
That's
number 1.
That's the entry level.
Okay.
Correct.
We're looking for a position to people to be able to aspire to go up.
Right now, they're plateaued and glass ceilinged.
With your staff, your HR assistant staff, what is the longest tenured person? How long?
Deja is the longest tenured person in the department. She's been here a long time.
Forever.
Tammy would be next, less than 3 years. Kelsey would be next. She just resigned. She took a job with Cornell Cooperative to be the HR lead for 5 counties. She'll be leaving in 2 weeks and doubled her pay. I can't even begin to counteroffer.
So with this creation, are you looking then to add a whole nother body in there the whole
No.
time? Or just
No.
number 1 will go vacant for a while?
Right. I'm not looking to add any new heads. This is just simply a promotional opportunity. So the vision I have is the person who is currently a 2 who will qualify to be a 3. I had envisioned that the person who is currently a 1 would move to 2, but she's resigned, so that's not going to happen. And I'll recruit a 1, and then 2 will be vacant for a while.
We'll be back to set the salaries for sure when you get these.
If I find a qualified candidate, yeah.
When?
Yeah, if and when.
No, not if, when.
So you're out to have 1 vacant.
I will have a vacancy next week.
Which is in for always.
I'm just thinking for budget reasons.
Always have people there, they're just gonna be here.
So you're adding another staff.
No, the total size of the staff will not change.
You're just adding another level,
Another job
so
title.
they can go up.
Exactly right.
Mhm.
So you're not abolishing something.
No.
No, I want
That way, if 2 has the capacity to do a 3, he would move into 3, but not build a 2 at that point.
you got it.
They would just pay this person, like, if they just pay David more to be a
It's just,
3.
I'm thinking about
Use and how that works and how a position has money, so you know how to sell out to.
Oh, God help you.
the budget.
Should we help you this
If
way?
it's a position, usually money in debt,
Right.
we're never gonna
So that makes
have
sense.
everybody
And then when she gets
stay
there,
on.
I'm like, oh, God.
Okay.
Now, Dan, what is the high level of the two? What's the pay for that? Level two?
So it's gotta be less.
So what are we talking? Yeah, it's less than that. I just wondering what the increase would be.
Well, there isn't any set range in any of our rules and regulations. It's basically what the person is getting now. I can tell you that it falls between the 1 and the 3 currently.
But the job description for the 3 has more responsibility.
More responsibilities and more experience required.
Okay.
Required, yeah.
That makes sense.
It's going to be in the $20 to $22 an hour range.
That's what they're in right now.
Makes sense.
But if I'm unsuccessful in finding a candidate at that range, I may have to come back and say, this is the bottom line, I can't get anybody.
And then what it does, it covers everything else up.
I would.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Anybody have any other more questions? And on these two items for 5 and 6?
Madam Chair, can you hear me? Hello?
Record for 5 and 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, turning the page to number 4, I'd ask you to consider reappointing Thomas Dutton to the Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term to expire in May of 2028 at a one-time rate of $125 per meeting, which is the standard rate for the commissioners, which has not been adjusted in a long time, once a month.
We haven't been able to hear Dan at all.
Dan, you've got to unmute yourself on your end. If you can, I know you can hear us, but you've got to unmute yourself at your end.
To the star.
Yes, can you hear me?
We are getting outside calls, so if it's a dial in, we aren't getting outside calls. Yeah, because I think we had outside calls this morning and I tried it with my cell phone, but I couldn't log into my computer because it dials load of
Do you want me to call him and move back up?
Yeah, Bill Sykes put out an email, said we're having difficulties with the phone system.
Can you hear me?
Through the computer.
I wasn't sure if he dialed in on Zoom because you can dial in.
Right, but none of them dial. They're on their computer. But that shows me,
I just-
it is unmuted and it looks like you were.
Actually, I've got a dog and pony here. Yeah, I'm on an
They
economy.
said that we
Hello?
really need to keep the side conversation down because it's interfering with the person. So
No,
we're
I can
concerned
hear
about
everyone
side
fine. The only comment I was gonna make is that when there's multiple conversations occurring in the room, it makes it difficult to hear everyone clearly. You know, a minute ago, there was some multiple conversations that were going on, and it makes it more difficult to hear.
Okay.
Lisa just came in and told us that as well.
But I can hear just fine.
Okay.
The change. No, you cannot. But I haven't had anything to say up until now. So,
If you want to call my cell phone, I can put you on speaker in the committee if it's
okay,
vital for you to be
And
heard.
leave yourself up there so we can see.
all right, that's fine.
Yeah, and you just have to leave yourself up or whatever you're doing. Don't change anything you have connected in, but if you need to make a comment, go ahead and call in and I can put you on.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm seeing everything that's going on. I'm hearing it. For some odd reason, my connection for you can't hear me. All right,
Thank you, Dan.
yep, thanks.
Bye.
Back to number 7 on reappointment. I do have a question, and I've been thinking about this since with the board managers, everything's come up, is do we have a set when we do reappointments? Do we look at them as a group? When somebody's like this, I don't know who this person is at all. Never met the man, I don't know. He's probably the nicest man and been doing this forever. But do they have to reapply for any of the appointments that we make? Is there any kind of procedure for reappointments? Or is it just, okay, you come in, it's landed on an agenda and we all say, okay, he wants to come back, we'll let him come back? I'm just wondering, is overall not, looking at anybody in specific or anything, but I'm just wondering, do we, as a board, have a procedure of when we put people on boards?
I think that we need to, whether it's a letter of continued interest and maybe a committee chair check off on that. I mean, I know at different levels you get a member that you like to maybe refresh and.
Right, like on this one, I've never met the man, but here I am, he's on my committee, and I'm appointing him, and I've never met them.
I think we get a lot of those across the board.
So that's what I mean, is there, we don't have any procedure, I mean, like I said, I'm not picking anybody out, or, I'm just wondering, did we or don't,
You just described our procedure.
We don't.
We don't.
It says he's from.
However, for the board of managers, it is required that for a new appointment, they submit an application. So those you've seen, but
Not for continued. And some of these people do kind of age out of effectiveness as they, he's from Bliss. Is that somebody that?
I don't know.
He'd be fine. He is fine.
Right,
I think.
But you don't know that.
Right.
You don't know.
And he's an original member of the Civil Service Commission.
Been on for some time.
And have we reached out to him, or is it just a?
Well, I can tell you that the Civil Service Commission falls under my purview. And I chair essentially the meeting and run the meeting on a monthly basis. Mr. Dutton has never missed a meeting. He is attentive, asks pertinent questions, and is a contributing and worthy board member to the 3-person panel. We're blessed, to be honest with you, have 3 excellent commissioners who are active and pay attention and ask good questions. So, and his appointment term had expired. He expressed a desire to continue. He's not sure he's going to last another 6 years, but he's willing to give it a shot.
With those recommendations, I'm happy to move that.
okay, but I'm just, this is just a thought about
Right.
how we look at people that we put on boards. There's been a lot of discussion out in the public about what we do and how we appoint people, and I think we need to.
If he was not a active and contributing commissioner, I would not have come to you and asked you to reappoint him.
the other thing I can add to that is that with the other committees, typically the department heads are making a recommendation to you about reappointment of members or new members. So some of that vetting is done in the departments. We just don't see it here.
Right.
And motion by Supervisor McCormick, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried. Number 8.
Okay, this is kind of a late addition to the agenda. It has to do with our EAP services, and I want to take a minute and kind of explain the circumstances. In 2020, we had an emergency where we had to switch vendors. The previous EAP vendor owner died suddenly. If you may remember that fiasco, and his company fell apart, and we were left with no EAP services at, quite honestly, a critical time. So I came to you, asked you for an emergency approval to sign a contract with our current EAP vendor, who, by the way, I'm extremely happy with. And at that time, we authorized a contract to be signed, and it's a 3-year contract that expires on March of next year. And the resolution that was passed did not quite honestly reflect what we were asking for. So we have a situation where 20 and 21 were paid just fine. And now that we're looking at paying the bill for 22, we need a reappointment of this resolution. And Cheryl, you can help me if I'm misstating this a little bit, but
Just a little bit.
just so everyone understands, the contract that was signed back then has 2 factors with regard to how much money we pay. There was a slight increase in the per person charge based on a census. So we pay so much per covered entity based on a census that we provide to the EAP each year. And quite honestly, we have a diminished census in 2022, so our bill is actually going down. And if you please add on whatever you.
I'm just gonna say the resolution that was approved in 2020 was for 1 year.
1 year, correct.
And it expired on March 31st of 2021. So when this came through again, Lisa happened to notice that year 2 and year 3 need to have an approval, and there were specific dollar amounts according to the census. There were 1,053, I think, people on the census. So, we have here is to amend resolution 20-153 to reflect an extended contract effective date through March 31st, 2023. I believe April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021 is fine.
Correct. We need the amendments for the last 2 years of the contract, which, and by the way, the contract was signed and in place, and we did pay last year's amount without any trouble.
Luke, because of the transition and because of the way, Lisa had a very in-depth conversation with Dee to discover how it actually got paid without the approval, and it all made sense to us, and we're trying to correct it. And going forward, with the help of Munis, we won't have a contract.
Right.
We won't have a payment in place without a contract.
Correct. And just for the committee's information, because of the reduction in the census snapshot, we're looking at about $1,000 lower payment this year than last year.
As long as we've got a cap, we're good.
Because if we hire more employees.
But if it goes over, then we gotta come back, but if we stay under that cap, we're happy.
Well, the next census will be incorporated with a new contract, because the contract that is currently signed and in place expires. So if we re-up with this vendor, we'll have to do it that way. But as I said, I'm extremely pleased with their service.
And at least you got paid, they were supposed to get paid.
Yeah.
Does everybody understand what's going on? If so, can I have a motion? Supervisor Dale, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
As an aside, and as an FYI to this saga, the EAP vendor that we died, and we had already paid our bill for that year, if you remember. And Mr. Wojcik and I were seeking reimbursement from his estate for that unpaid amount, and we did receive a partial payment out of his estate for the unused services. That was like pulling teeth. Okay. I'd like to move down to the discussion items. At one of the prior meetings, I came to you talking about a unification of the county and hospital service award program. If you recall, we have had an employee service award program at the hospital for some time, in which we grant awards to employees based on their years of service. The HR department had purchased a number of gifts standardized by their years of service that were specifically identified as hospital service. And we would have an annual ceremony. The chairperson would come and participate in that. And we would award employees based on 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of service. And they'd get a small token, get a certificate, and a lapel pin.